Very well.
All right, call the meeting to order. First order of business is public comment. If you want to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to 3 minutes, and address them to the board and not to the audience. Nope. Item number 3, appointments. Donald Anderson?
He's not here.
All right.
Oh, maybe he doesn't
You have the application.
know that it starts at 6, I don't know. But
And you can look at the application. Yeah.
Perfect. He said he was gonna be here.
Yeah, I saw him
Yeah.
Thursday.
We saw him last week, he said that too, but,
Oh, all right, sorry.
okay. Do we need to do anything, or can we
Yep.
move forward with it?
Well, you need to appoint him if you want to.
Well, let's do that.
Okay, first topic. So I move to appoint Donald Anderson to the Energy Committee. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Rebecca?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Scott Bugby, aye. Motion passes. Next up is Luke Rondon. Luke?
This is I think I already gave things
Yes.
up to Donald. You've probably already seen this, but it's almost a year old, so might not remember. So, I'm wearing my mask because going to a party on Friday, my mother's turning 100,
Great.
so I just thought I'd
Congratulations.
keep my mask on. Anyways, I came with a request for, the Energy Committee has a $500 budget, and we would like to use that to hire an energy consultant. Someone that will evaluate the equipment we use, and someone who can, someone that's knowledgeable that can give us recommendations when we need new equipment. This person would know what's available, which equipment is energy efficient, which one is cost effective, which one is the highest quality. And this was recommended by someone from Clean Energy New Hampshire. We're part of that. And it was during seminar, and it sounded like a good idea, something I've been thinking of for a long time. And the first person I had in mind was Tim McDonald, who evaluated the building last year. He was working on something called Building Operator Certificate. It was a course he was taking at Energy Efficiency course. He works for a company called GDS that does energy efficiency. In fact, they did the blower door test for this room. I guess I talked about him before. So he would be my first choice. And if he won't do it, there other people would. So,
Did they give you a rough estimate of how much that would normally cost?
no.
Okay.
I'll,
Look into that.
yeah. I'm hoping we won't go through the $500 too quickly, but I don't know for sure, but something to look into. Seems like a reasonable thing to use our budget for.
Sure.
Okay. I also want to bring up Rachel Eads from Revision Energy will be ready to present a PPA, a power purchase agreement with a Revision. And a couple of weeks ago, we toured the various sites. We toured around the safety complex and the transfer station. And in her opinion, the transfer station would be the most cost-effective transfer station roof. would be the most cost-effective place put on an array, which is a pretty important consideration. I spoke to Scott Nemeth. He thought that would be fine. A couple of things that she noticed and I noticed was that when we went into the office and looked at the breaker boxes and everything, and it's a 200 amp service, which is not a very big service. That's the same service that I have at my house. It's not very big. And Pete was working there, and Rachel asked him, if it worked out very well. And he says they do pop the circuit breakers sometimes when they have the compactor and the baler going on at the same time. So Rachel recommended that we upgrade the service to a 400 amp service because going down the road, you might be adding more electrical gadgets and you'll be, it's just going to be a problem. And it's also going to limit the size of the solar array that she can put on, or that Revision can put on the roof. She said the larger array will get us more savings. She thought the town should probably try hire or contact an electrician to give the town an estimate of how much it would cost and how long it would take. She says the price range is usually between $5,000 and $10,000, which I thought was pretty high, but I guess that's what it is. So it would be a good thing for the town to take on, I believe. Another thing since Scott knows a lot about PPAs, but they're kind of new for you and they're probably new for Rebecca too. So I just thought I would talk about a few things coming up because they're kind of technical, and so if you get hit with everything at once, it's a little bit hard to take it all in at once. So one of the things that I would like to talk about is there are three options when you get your PPA. The first option is you can just buy the array outright, and then you're getting the money from the array immediately. Or second option is that the PPA or Revision finds an investor to build the array, and the investor will build it, own it, and will sell the power to the town. And that can be done for 25 years. The agreement is usually, they expect a 25-year agreement, and you still save money, but the savings aren't that great. The biggest savings that you can get with the PPA is when the investor owns the array for 5 years and then sells it back to the town. And the reason for that is the town does not pay income tax, but the investor does. So the investor can take that 26% tax credit, and they use it over 5 years, and in year 6 they can sell it to the town. And the PPAs I saw, it usually results in about a 30 or so, or even higher percent savings to the town. And it's up to the town. If the town just wants to just keep buying the array, buying the power from the investor, that's fine too. That's, you have the choice of options. And so, let's see. The other thing that you have to think about a lot is it's called the net metering rate. And what that means, and a net meter is just a meter like you have on your house, but it goes in two directions. Instead of just racking up one direction where you just oh and oh and oh. If you have a solar array, at some point, most arrays are designed to be putting out more electricity than you're using. So then it starts going in the other direction. Now, years ago, when people were net metering, just at the very beginning of when people were putting in arrays, the companies, the electric companies were reimbursing people at 100%. Well, that didn't last long because they thought it was expensive. So now it's down to about 2/3 with the co-op, which is that's where most of our power is used. This building is a co-op building, the transfer station, and the two garages, the annex and the main garage. So those are the four main buildings. And the library is on Eversource, and you can't mix and match. You can't get reimbursed from Eversource for power on a co-op structure. So anyways, now it's always, a lot of people think that, well, since you're only getting it, only getting reimbursed at 2/3 of the rate, then you're losing money. But but everybody that gets solar depends on the net metering, even though it's at a lower rate. And the reason it works is because solar power is cheaper than anything else. So because it's cheaper, it still works out to a savings. And this is something she's going to go through, but I just wanted to introduce that before, something to think about. Possibly she'll be able to send the PPA before the next meeting. And if she can and you see it, then you'll have a better idea of how it works. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, questions, yes.
Run off.
So first of all, with the solar, I've had some questions about with snow and things like that. And I know that that's something that hasn't been a huge problem. How does that work with snow if it's built up on the roof? Do you know?
You know what? She said to, I don't have a pen. Can I borrow your pen for a second? She said to write down these questions.
Perfect, all right, good. We'll ask her that. And we definitely want to make sure that she's going to do a structural analysis to make sure the weight of everything on the roof.
Yes,
Wind.
we still have the building plans from the last time we had a PPA 4 years ago.
Perfect.
And I think that one really never came to fruition mainly because we didn't really understand how the net metering worked.
Mhm.
We thought we would be losing money, but
No.
we just didn't realize that it's all priced in a certain way so that you can still have savings.
There may have been a structural engineer report as part of that
Perfect,
initial
all
one.
right, we'll grab that.
4 years ago, and Rachel had mentioned that while we were walking
Okay.
here anyway. That the social-
And she did mention that at some point, Revision will hire an independent contractor
Right.
to assess the roof.
And then I have a question about the watt. I spoke to Steve, and he said that as we go forward and we're upgrading our 35-year-old balers and things like that, that all the new machinery is really at 660 amps. So
Oh,
I'm
really?
wondering if Sorry, volts. Not my language. 660, so if we go higher than the 440, we're fine, correct?
Okay, let me
Is
write
that how,
that
is
down.
that how electricity works?
We've got two different measurements there, I believe, amperage versus voltage, but
It's probably okay, because I would think that the solar array would be,
Correct.
you know, putting in their power at their own.
Yeah, it's easier to have less, you just can have more.
Right,
So
but that's a good question, and I will make sure she addresses that.
it would be important for us to think about the future of the transfer station, if we're gonna do something like this, to make sure we're ready for 10 years from now, you know, as opposed to just for that one
Yeah.
thing.
Well, you gotta think, a lot of things are going electric. I've gone electric
Correct.
myself, big time. I've
Us
gotten
too.
a heat pump, I've got a heat pump water heater, I got an electric car. Next, I wanna get an electric lawnmower, electric snow blower, an electric leaf blower.
So it just makes sense to have that power.
It
and have
makes
that ready.
sense to upgrade the power,
Yeah.
because everything, and, you know, that's the way to offset the carbon
Correct.
is with, so.
Another thing, the last time we looked at this, the board said that we would not be putting any arrays on the roofs.
Yes,
So
Wasn't that before that became common practice?
but,
that we had some reservations from the fire chief, and I know you said he'd okayed it, but
He's totally reversed 180 on roofs. I've talked to him, you've talked to him, I think we've all talked to him. He has the
and since then, they passed a law saying that, if there's a fire, there's an automatic switch off.
that's the
That's a law.
issue that the, okay.
That's a law.
So now he knows exactly how to find that, what to do, and so, yeah, so I did check
He
him right
has,
away.
he has a solar array on his house,
Okay.
so.
Anything else?
Rebecca?
Any other questions from anybody?
No, I have nothing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So can we go ahead and get an estimate from an electrician for the 660 volt? And find out if we have the ability with the connecting to the energy source, that's
Right.
an option.
I can make some estimates.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Just wondering if the board is going to ask for a analysis for the array at both places, because the peak usage at the transfer station is just 3 days a week, whereas the use in this building is predominantly 5 days a week. And that makes a difference in how much power you're selling at the lower rate back to the power company versus what you're using on site.
Yeah, the last time we looked at this, I don't know, we must have updated.
Can I
this,
say
Yes.
something?
I asked you
Sure.
a question
Oh.
earlier.
Yeah, so we looked at both places, and since this building is used 24/7,
Mhm.
it's using quite a bit of power. So all through the night, you're not gonna get anything from the solar array. So she figures that net metering won't be as big a factor because of that. If this building was used solely during the day, it would have a big effect. But since it's like 24 hours, you've got the police station and the fire station, it's used quite a bit, and the co-op has, their net metering is like real time, like the minute that you're net metering, it's credited that minute to what you're using. Whereas with Eversource, they just add up the net metering you did for the month, doesn't matter when, and then they pay you for that. So it's kind of a disadvantage, so.
The other thing is we don't have to have an either or as well. We could do this at the transfer station. That could go really well. And then we could look into other options in town for other
Yeah.
energy sources.
I was actually with Lou and Rachel when we were here, and there were a couple of other setbacks here as well. One, the roof is pretty much out because of the orientation directionally of the flat part of the roof and how it faces, and this end of the roof is a little too complex for them to consider putting panels on. It was sort of funny because Rachel asked if we thought that ledge might be a problem, and I think
It
Lou and
is.
I looked down and you could see exposed ledge
Yeah.
where we were all standing.
Yeah.
And there were two other components too. One, you have to be free and clear 25 feet from a power line, and there is the power line that comes through behind the building. And probably the most suitable spot was where I believe it's either chestnuts,
Chestnuts,
American chestnut trees have been replanted and dedicated. And
Yeah, and the array that was going to be like across the parking lot, one of the disadvantages with that one is that you would have to get the power from the array to the building, you'd have to cut into the pavement, you'd have to cut into the parking lot, dig a trench, and then redo that and then repave the parking lot, and that would add quite a bit of expense. You don't have to do that at the transfer station.
So
Can you write down another question?
Sure.
I'm still against the roof business,
That's
but
fine.
when we need to replace the roof, because building was 2003, 2004, 30 years, 2033, so in, what, 9 years, 11 years?
40 to 70 years for a metal roof.
We don't have
Yeah,
metal
we,
roof.
I
The
think,
transfer
I
station.
think,
No, no, I'm talking about this building.
Oh, we don't want to put it on this?
no, we don't want it on this building. I've since had a bunch of solar people saying this is
No.
not a good building for solar,
Okay.
because it's too cut up.
So it would just be the transfer station, which we have.
Just the
plenty of years
transfer
left.
station.
And you can remove the panels if they're still fabulous in 30 years and then put them,
They're expected to last 40 years.
right, so if you had to change the roof, then you can.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about the expense of taking them off the roof, replacing the roof,
Right, which you
putting them
would.
back on the roof.
Right, which if you put them on a non-metal roof, you'd have to do, and the metal roof only has 20 years and a 40 to 70 year life, normally 50. So we should be okay.
yeah, we did, that, I think you gave me that information about.
yeah, the transfer station roof went on in 2003, and I talked to Bill Booth and I talked to the folks at Revision, and they said, plan on 40 to 70 years for a standard steel roof life expectancy, and shoot for 50.
Yeah, and I think the array is going to cover most of one side, the one that's facing mostly south, and that will extend the life of the roof.
Less wear and tear. Maybe.
But you're definitely
Right
right
there.
about collectors on, panels on this one.
I also just want to make sure when we're having the energy person come through, if that does work out, that we have Steve Bullock involved as much as possible.
Yes.
I know that some of the things that we changed, maybe it had someone who was in charge of the building been in charge, it might have changed to a slightly different choice. So I just want to make sure his opinions are
Yeah,
part of that conversation. Ease of maintenance.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Oh, I keep meaning to do this. Can you thank the rest of your committee for the work you did on the thing we did the last time for the installation?
Yeah.
That was an awful lot of work over a period of years, so thank you very much for all that time and effort you guys put into that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's all
That's
we
what you
do.
do.
That's what we do.
Thank you for doing it.
All right, next, Martin Thornton and Deb Sher.
Martin Thornton, 9 Granger Drive.
Deb Sugarman, 135 Stone Road.
So we're back here about another bridge. We have, as we said last time, there's a number of bridges that are out there in the town, and they all have different priorities as to where they are and what needs. And Deb's been very busy on locating community grants out there to find ways to purchase this without any cost to the town. So when we did the inventory of it, and back to what Scott said last time, are we safe on all the bridges and that sort of stuff? One of the bridges, we said, well, we probably want to make sure we have permission in place here to replace it, is on the Esker Trail. And if we do receive the funding, we wanted to get that out of the way with the select board and be able to go forward with replacement of it. The current bridge was built by the Captain Parker residences. It's kind of narrow, it's just a couple 2x4s with a plank on top. It works, but in the wintertime, it's a problem. In the little presentation I sent out, you can see the bridge actually this winter was totally covered with ice and basically shut down the trail. So it's not a good situation coming across there. It's in a nice spot to come across the river, but it's too low, and that area just floods out. So it did give us an opportunity this winter while we're monitoring all the bridges to locate a spot about 5 feet upstream where the embankment is higher, adds another foot to the elevation, gets us up above the flood area. We can cross it with about a 12-foot bridge. And it'll be built to the standards. So it'd just be a minor reroute of the trail. And like I said, we verified it this winter, and I set a log across in some of the pictures that were in the presentation to kind of give you an idea of exactly where we're talking about. We've gotten approval from the Conservation Commission to relocate the bridge and be there. DES permit is in process. We're bank to bank. We don't think there should be any problem with it, but we want to make sure we have a DES approval squared away. Deb has submitted the grants to fund this bridge. So we're just looking for approval from the select board, so if we do get the grants or we come up with money from the Conservation Commission money somewhere in there, then we can proceed with the replacement of the bridge. The bridge would be built by the Trail Committee, same way as we do the others, once the DES funding is approved. And that's what we're asking for.
That's great. I am so appreciative of how much money we save by everyone doing that manual labor. It's incredible what that would cost if we paid someone to do that, and this is such a small
You call us
portion
cheap?
of that.
Thrifty.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Rebecca, any questions?
Nope.
All right, so I move to approve replacing the bridge along the Esker Trail in the Ma Jones Memorial Forest for an amount not to exceed $700.
Second? Sorry. Go ahead, I thought you were done. Sorry.
Said cost to come from the Conservation Commission operating budget. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I guess we'll do, Rebecca, are you in favor?
Yes.
Oh, she's dying on us. Katrin?
Yeah, yes, I.
And I'm approved too, so motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So while we're here, because I knew Scott was gonna ask this question, so I thought I would preempt it. I just wanted to give you a bridge update. How's that? So I have 2 grants out to AARP and American Trails. We'll find out in May if we get them. Who knows? Who knows? We'll try. That's the only thing you can do. So the first bridge that we're gonna fix is bridge number 4 in the town forest, which we did half of, and that's covered by ARPA funds. We still have the remainder of the funds available, but we couldn't finish the whole bridge by the time we worked on it, so we want to finish that in June. It's a really wet bridge, so we have to wait until June to work on it. The Little River Park bridges are number 2, well, 1 or 2. So we don't really have funding for these yet because none of the grants were interested in those bridges at all. So we're going to ask the Conservation Commission if they can fund them. We also might go back to LRAC, which is where we got the grant from originally, to see if they would be willing to help us fund those. So that's possible, and we'll start working on those in May probably. We're gonna, our next bridge is the Boulder Trail Bridge, which you've already, in Ma Jones Memorial Forest, with the new trail. So we're just waiting on the permit for that too. And so we're running some walks with the Conservation Commission at the town forest tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll reassess the bridges as we walk and see how they are. So.
I love the idea that you had about having it raised up a little bit more, so yeah, anytime that we can, I think that we got a little close on some of them, I think you probably noticed this winter, so if we can them a little,
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah, they did a great job monitoring the bridges.
Yeah, it's excellent.
It was a good winter for monitoring.
Yeah, but can you, the Little River Park, you went over budget because of the whole DES thing, right?
Yeah,
So you don't have enough money to do the actual bridge itself?
we don't have any money left over from the grant, the original grant
So,
to build the bridges.
refresh my memory, how much is it to do the bridge?
That's about 1,500.
So,
Two bridges.
the two? I thought it was only one.
Well, it's a 24-foot
Oh, it's a-
span.
There's one big one and one teeny tiny.
That's the one to go over where they had like the pallets and
Yeah,
they were doing
that's the little
RV
teeny
stuff.
tiny one, that won't be very much at all. The
So-
other one is bigger, because it's lower, and so it,
Okay, so yeah, I'm a little bit off, but that's what happens when I go off the top of my head. There's not much there. The Little River culvert is around $200 to $300 to do that, and it's $1,100 to do the
Very
24
close.
foot.
So,
Yeah. Sorry.
You cut me off.
I didn't mean to, I was.
Okay, that's it, that's it.
They like
I'm with you.
bridges.
No, would you ladies be amenable to using some of our ARPA funds to fund the rest of the bridge so we can get that project done?
Yes.
Rebecca?
I have no concerns about that, assuming, we're still under the total.
As far as I know, we are. So I move to expend up to $1,500 for the fill in the blank. What's
Little
the
Little River Park Bridge.
Little River Park Bridge is.
which is two.
And the source of funds to come from the ARPA funds.
Great.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? No? Rebecca, are you in favor?
Yes,
Katrin, are you in favor?
Yes.
I'm in favor. Motion passes.
Great,
So-
Thank you.
Get her done.
yeah, thank you so much,
Sure.
that'll really help.
Thank you.
Good. Yay, thanks.
Because we've got to keep your Trails Committee busy. We don't want them.
Bored.
Yeah.
No.
All right, item number 4, regular business. Town administrator?
Sure. A few things to go over. One, I had sent some information about possible choices regarding the, for lack of a better term, clickables that we use on the agenda. The board had expressed some concern to me about information, particularly that's on the consent agenda, provides people's cell phone numbers oftentimes, their home numbers, or their emails. A few ways that we could work around this, I think. I know Lee has a, I think, fairly lengthy history of posting all documents that go with the agenda for public review. That is not necessarily that common in some other communities I checked with. You could just post the agenda with no attachments, have a file in the office that you as the board review. I'm not sure that is necessarily works the best with your schedule to come in and review documents in a correspondence file or a consent agenda file in the office. We can just post the agenda with no attachments and send individual board members a meeting packet. That's very common, particularly with school boards, because they handle information that they don't want necessarily floating around in public pretty regularly. Or we can work out some sort of hybrid model, pretty much what we did this week, where Denise and I will go through and attempt to either white out any personal information that's there. If there's something that we can't edit to make it vacuous enough, then we can send a separate email just to the board with that information. And I don't know what the board's pleasure is, but we're...
If somebody had a question about what was in the consent agenda, and we normally had a small packet that was sent to us, but they wanted to know more, could we technically give them that information and then just white out at that time the information and they could see it?
You
Like
could, most of these are public documents, things like, you have a lot of forms in there that have communication information, intents to cut, that sort of thing, which are public information. They could show up and
Right.
demand to see that, we'd have to show it to them.
So they could see it if they want to, so it's not, we're not keeping anything ready, we're just making it so we're not passing out
You just,
easily to everybody.
we're not putting it on the internet where
Yeah.
anyone and everyone can easily access it. You would have to call the town office or
Yeah,
come in or convince a selectman to show you their packet.
yeah, Yeah, it makes sense to me. How about you guys?
Rebecca?
You took everything out.
Was what you did this week, like extra arduous?
Would what Andy just said, or what you mean to have it so that if somebody requests, we can go ahead and write it out at that time?
No, I don't think it would be extra arduous. Certainly not for me. It probably would be for Denise, but. No,
Less than do every
I
time.
think we could handle that in short order fairly easily.
I guess, I'm not sure, whatever goes out via email to the board, I think would have to be available.
Right, anyone,
Right.
someone's interested. I just don't want it to be out where anyone in the world can just click on a link
Right.
and they can see people's personal information, because that's a really easy way to
Well, you'll see in one of the things that we pulled and sent to you this week, it was the health officer's reappointment form, and it asks for her date of birth, her email, her social
Right,
security
right,
number.
right.
And clearly, we don't want to be putting that in a clickable on the consent agenda.
Right.
Chief?
What it's worth, early on in my career when I was in Durham, they would put together the council packets.
Mhm.
We actually delivered them to their homes.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Sealed, there were sealed packets, and we would deliver the council packets.
Just to keep that from being out there in the world.
And they still, Durham still does use a council packet. I think it's electronically distributed now, but that was one of the towns that I ran across that used a packet that just went to the board members.
Yeah.
My neighbors talk about me already, I don't need them saying, well, what's the police doing at your house every day? What are they doing there? I don't need that.
I think we could,
So
The
if,
point is, that's normal practice to not share personal information with people.
if we can do it, I would appreciate the hybrid one.
Me too.
So if there is something, it's not every single week either, that there's something in there, but if we can do that.
Pretty much is every single week that there's something.
there's going to be something with personal contact information on it, but.
But if somebody in the town wanted stats about, how often do we do this, or how often, we could also provide that without having to share personal information too. So there's a lot of ways that people can get, I don't want to just deny anyone access to anything.
Right.
I just don't also want to give people's personal information.
So hold on, can I ask you a question? So for instance, the thing you mentioned about Karen Rossi's appointment, and the social security number, if I came to the town office and I'm just regular Joe resident or whatever, are you gonna blank out her social security number?
We
so I
would
can-
certainly redact any information, and we might even rebuff it as a qualified employment document, personnel document. depending
That
on
would take
what's
you
on
for a
there. That just came across forefront of my mind, that had a lot of information. in it.
Yeah,
No social security, it was just date of
Personal.
birth
right.
and a home address, I think.
I-
Those two things. It didn't have social.
Okay.
Mr. Tappan?
Sean Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. So the problem is just PDF documents that have personal information on them.
Mhm.
And if you buy a PDF Pro editor rather than the cheapest you can get, you can redact.
We have the ability to redact with an Adobe PDF program right now.
And it takes some time, but with the trustees of trust funds, that's what we do with documents that have bank account numbers on them.
Mhm. I think it depends on the form too, so if you have something that just has a person's one-time information, but if it then tells more throughout, that's different. So the question is, do we need to have that out there?
So you create PDFs out of them on the printer, or do you have the program?
We have, I forget which version, we have a fairly advanced level of Adobe PDF Creative.
Well, I would scan this document in. This is a document that she filled out,
Mhm.
Hand.
scan it in, and then,
The printer creates the PDF,
yes.
yeah, so,
So I don't know if I could go in with any
Right,
program. I
with
have.
regard to what John said, we certainly have the capability to go in and redact. And if we couldn't, we could go in and redact with a magic marker as
So-
necessary.
why don't you guys see if you can work that out?
Yep.
Maybe we can try that.
Until we have it figured out, can we go ahead and continue to do the thing where we have a package and then, just so that way, for the next one, in case we don't have it figured out or whatever, we want to make sure that that's not out there
I
anymore.
should know in the next day or two whether I'm smart enough to use the redact feature. Go from there.
Let's see if the quality of our redacting is high enough. How's that? There's no judging your intelligence.
Moving along, I have a caterpillar event, but it's actually a combination caterpillar and moth event that the Conservation Commission and the UNH would like to hold on June 25th. And the reason that it's on here instead of just having Denise schedule it is because they would like to be on the Lamprey River field.
Lamprey River.
River Park.
Little River.
Little River Park, from 6:30 at night to midnight. And this is a moth observation event as well, and that's why they want to be there at night. The language there might lead you to believe that they're going to use noisy gas engines, and that's sort of a double negative. They are not going to use noisy gas
Correct.
engines. They would like to be able to tap into
Not.
electricity at Little River Park, so they don't have to run generators.
The reason that the time is just the noise ordinance, and that's not an issue, so that's the only reason that wouldn't work.
The reason that we put it in here for your consideration above and beyond normal is Little River Park's rules stipulate that it closes at dusk,
There
so.
you go. Do you have any problems with that?
No, if
Great,
you could just send me an email, Denise, and I'll let the troops know that work that night, so they don't bother them.
great.
But we also have to agree to have the highway department
Oh,
turn on the
power, yeah.
electricity
Okay,
And then turn it off.
and then turn it off.
great.
This is gonna cut down on the illegal activity at the pavilion, so I don't know, I don't know about that. We don't have that anymore, is that, or that still happens?
What's that?
Illegal activity.
Little activity at the Little River Park.
Not that gets reported to us, I read about it on Neighbor Lee. But there is activity going on, but our officers are through there many times throughout the night on directed patrols, and they'll catch people in their cars and kick them out. And
Is there still a camera set up there at the park? Oh, there-
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, all right.
Note to town though, if you see, graffiti or things happening, you can
Please call.
also call the police
Yes.
and then let Labor Leaf know if you want. But please let the police department know so they can actually handle it immediately.
A lot of things happened on Neighborly.
Okay,
All right, any questions?
no, can we go ahead and say yes to this?
Is there a motion? There's a motion.
And, Rebecca, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Okay. All right, so I move to approve the Conservation Commission and the UNH Cooperative Extensions application to use Little River Park in the Randy Stevens Pavilion on Saturday, June 25th, from 6:30 PM to midnight, or was it changed? It is still midnight?
Yep.
Midnight for a moth event and grant permission for the Highway Department to turn on electricity at the Little River Park for this event and to turn it off afterwards. I added that last part myself.
I second the motion.
I have a second, yes. Any discussion?
No,
All those in favor say aye. Rebecca, are you okay?
aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Very well. Moving on to item number 3, insulation update. I met with John from Newell and Crafthorn. We joined up with Steve Bullock in this building and investigated the ceiling as best we were able. John tentatively has us scheduled for June 6th to start. This would be a week and a half estimate on the project, and John and I are going to get together about 2 weeks before that date and meet with the police chief, fire chief, and Steve Bullock to discuss placement of vehicles. There are a couple of spots that are very good for bringing pipes and hoses, that sort of thing, into the building. Unfortunately, one of them is pretty close to the doors of the fire department, and I know when I talked to John, he said, well, you don't have that many fires anyway, probably. And I said, no, the trucks roll pretty much on a daily basis,
Yeah.
thanks to Route 4 and Route 125.
We have that available.
So we went from there, but that is the tentative schedule right now, and we will be getting together, as I said, 2 weeks or so in advance to work out any scheduling issues we have in the building. And hopefully, a week to a week and a half will be the full slot of time they need in there.
Good.
Exciting.
And I'll certainly update you as any more information is available. Item number 4, Municipay discussion. Municipay is a credit card and electronic check payment collection group that works exclusively with towns and cities. They're based in Portland, Maine, and I approached them to give us a demonstration, talk with us about what they might be able to do for the transfer station, planning and zoning, and potentially Parks and Rec as that moves forward too. There's no cost to the town for using their service because they charge user fees. They take all major credit cards. They also will do e-checks. Fairly good reputation, been around for 13 years. One of the reasons that I was attracted to them was their reporting. I have been led to believe by the financial officer and the assistant financial officer and the town clerk that it is absolutely hellacious to reconcile credit card payments for various fees from various departments. Denise and I had about a 40-minute meeting, went through a demo. From what I can see, the reconciliation reports that they do are much more advanced than the ClerkWorks thing that we're familiar with. My next step in this is, first of all, to see if this is a direction the board would like to see me continue in, and if it is, I need to get Liz and Joanne involved in the down and dirty actual reconciliation and make sure I'm not being sold a bill of goods by software lips.
Do you have something to add?
Is this something that we could get in on?
This is
Yeah,
definitely,
just part of
this is definitely something that you could get in on. They will happily include the fire department, the police department, and they can customize to any sort of fee or fine. They actually handle traffic fines more for Midwestern municipalities, particularly where counties are able to levy traffic fines. But
That's between accident reports and pistol permits would be huge for us.
yep, I think that's certainly something you could do.
Thank you.
Can you walk me through from the customer's point of view how this works?
From the customer's point of view, there are a couple of ways this can work. For Parks and Rec, that sort of thing, you can have a link on the website. So if you were going in to sign up for yoga or dance or what have you, you would pay your fee online. The actual departments could also have links on their particular login. So if you came in to see Tom, Tom could pull the screen up, take your payment, and issue the permit from his computer. The only cost they have, although they do have a fairly inexpensive lease program too, and this would probably be more within the transfer station. They have a couple of different styles of portable card reader, and I would suspect that that would work well in the transfer station where you could, hand the attendant your card. It's cordless, completely wireless, and they handle all the liability for security and encrypting. My recollection is that the standard credit card fee, if you're not doing property taxes, the standard credit card fee is $2.50. It was $1.50 for an electronic check. If you're doing property taxes, much like ClerkWorks that we use now, they want a percentage and a bigger bite for handling a large amount of money.
So everything people do that's smaller is gonna cost about like $250 extra?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think they have some volume based on that. You would still have the option, if you don't want to pay that fee, of bringing a check or what have you to the department.
Okay.
Well, a lot of people show up here, they'd probably rather pay the $250 than drive to the ATM and come back.
Right.
I know the transfer station is getting a lot of feedback from people who want to know why they can't use, their phone or their credit card to pay for a fee.
I wonder if as you go forward, you structure the fees so that they include that, and then you count it as like a discount if you do it. And that way it feels a little less.
You certainly could.
Yeah.
Part of my focus on electronic payment was coming up as we talk a little bit about the audit as well. I think that's one of the things we brought up in the audit is that they didn't find any evidence of wrongdoing or misaccounting, but having department heads come to the office once a week or every other week with a handful of hand reconciled receipts and cash doesn't necessarily impress auditors.
It allows for a lot of opportunity that doesn't help.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it'd be great, it'd be much more convenient, it'd be much easier, you'd get things done faster. And I think we'll, down the road, once we get used to the reconciling, can actually save time, which would save the town money on hours.
Right now, we use a three-phase reconciliation process that the town clerk, finance officer, and the assistant officer have sort of put together over the years that involves a manually filled out spreadsheet, looking at all the deposits. And the problem is that the credit card deposits go as a batch. So then you have to go through, and if anything doesn't match up, you have to go through and figure out, okay, this payment for $28, this one for $1,402, that sort of equals the mistake, and back and forth until it's not clearly labeled by deposit, so by deposit or by transaction. The department head has a list of transactions that they present, but 2 or 3 people end up sitting down with calculators and pencils and trying to figure out
Yeah.
what equals the batch deposit.
Yeah.
And from what I can see, Municipay and probably some other companies as well have worked around that, but
So we would save a lot of hours.
that would be my intention, and we'd also streamline a good chunk of the process, so.
That'd be incredible. And a lot of frustration.
Can you, this is off subject if we're done with the subject. And I know Steve brought this up with the package he was talking about, but the ability for us to do electronic time cards for all of our staff, because that seems to be problematic.
That is,
Very old fashioned.
payroll is a huge issue in my mind, and I've talked to an outfit in Concord, I've talked with MRI about their MTS software, which is a financial platform that would do more than payroll. But, we've got, all of the department heads and most of the employees have access to a computer at this point. And the idea that we are literally showing up with, a stack of handwritten, crumpled,
Right.
grease-stained time cards.
State.
Well, when I asked I asked one of the finance officers 2 weeks ago when I was asking them questions about payroll, well, what kind of problems do you run into? And she said, well, like this card, which has no one's name on it, and this large stain. And I think that there are a number of options, well past, and that will be easier for the department heads as well.
Those are things that it costs something up front, and then you find in the hours you're not spending, I think you really do save
Well,
money.
you get into data entry problems too, because they put it on a piece of paper, you gotta put it in,
Right.
but if it's electronic,
And wouldn't it be more
employee
likely to
sees
have the time right, because you're gonna clock in when you clock in and then clock out?
You can set it up a number of ways. You don't necessarily have to clock in. You can pretty much it's an electronic version of the paper time card, except that it does accrual for you and that sort of thing.
and then it gets, when you sign off on it, at least the system that I currently use, the employee signs off and it goes automatically to the supervisor and they check it,
That's
they
great.
okay it, and then it goes into the payroll system. So
Yeah,
great.
I was, in a previous existence, I was familiar with the UltiPro program that basically if you didn't do your time card right, it doesn't let you proceed. It keeps taking you back to the beginning and saying, enter your name, enter your hours, enter your vacation day.
That's great.
But yes, that is very much at the forefront of what I'm thinking about moving forward. And obviously, this plays into a much bigger picture. I'm not going to bring it up at this meeting in detail anyway, but obviously the finance officer and her, wanting to retire. As near as I can tell, probably 75 municipalities in New England right now are advertising for finance directors. And we are going to need to be out in front well before Joanne leaves. So.
And making, you can't, I had electronic time cards in the 90s, I feel like we really moved this forward. Like, let's not have to explain this, let's move forward, I like that.
So can I ask the chief, you probably have the largest department, was that something that you guys would use?
Oh, absolutely.
Save
The
time.
only thing we have is we have multiple entries, so we have our regular shift, overtime, court, training, vacation, so if there are different choices they could put in.
Great.
But yeah, I would love, this morning, for instance, I was chasing 2 officers who forgot to submit the time slips.
You don't have time for that.
So, you know, and if one worked the midnight shift, they're sleeping, they're not listening to their phone, so you got a guest, just put them in for 40, and
Right.
that'd be great.
Both the MTS program from MRI and the other, it's not Paychex, but it's a similar sounding name, which is a national company but based in Concord, New Hampshire, have exclusive packages for municipalities. That's what they focus on, and it is very clearly geared towards the special needs you need for emergency services and police. That is,
Yay.
and that's what they all use as a selling point. It's,
Ah, I love
we're
it.
not just
You can't say
payroll
that.
things. Under just miscellaneous, and I know Denise sent out some stuff this afternoon late, but there've been some questions about web and Facebook.
Just want to add to miscellaneous, this is Don Anderson.
Yeah, my apologies, I thought I was early for a 7 o'clock meeting, guess what? So, nice to meet
Thank you
you
for
all.
coming in and.
I want to be on the Energy Committee, and that's the purpose of
Well, we have
introducing
you,
myself.
We have
You're
great
good.
news, yeah.
I'm good.
You just
Thank
have to
you.
go to the clown clerk's office and get sworn in.
You trust, that's what, that's good.
Blue voucher.
Oh, what do I have to do? Sorry?
Town clerk's office, you have to go in and get sworn in.
Okay.
So she's open Monday, Wednesday,
Monday,
and Friday.
Friday, yep.
So you'll have to wait till Wednesday to go in.
Not a problem, I gotta go in.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering.
Who's looking around?
I had two things under miscellaneous. The board had asked about web numbers and Facebook numbers. I have some basic numbers. Denise had shared some of those. In addition to the basic numbers, Denise is coordinating with Civic Plus to hook a Google Analytics account up to Civic Plus. When I started asking Denise where the analytics page was, and I didn't realize that Civics Plus didn't automatically have that as a built-in feature on their website. So when Denise looked into it, they were happy to add the Google Analytics portion, which will do exactly what we need. You know, you can track visits by minute, hour, 30 days, see how long people stay on, see where they come from. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to just give a little bit of an overview. For town news, and this is on the webpage, for town news, eCryer, and urgent alerts, you've got between 868 and 891 people that are logged on to receive that. Select board minutes are the lowest. When only 114 people want to receive minutes automatically. Agendas were a lot more popular, 482 folks are signed up for that. But that gives you a rough idea. We're a little bit under 1,000 for people that have subscribed to services. And I'm interested in seeing the real-time traffic as far as site visits beyond that. With regard to Facebook, varies pretty widely. The most popular things, the highest numbers of visits to the page come from events. And the highest one that I could find was the Leaf Fair, which in 2021 had close to 2,000 views.
Nice.
Followed by the more recent yard sale ad that Karen put up, which had a little over 1,200 visits. Animal pictures were next. The skunk picture that I put up got over 800 hits. Animal pictures tend to be between 700 and 800
Try putting a
views.
cute cat up there and see what happens to your numbers. You really knocked that out of the park.
But that gives you a rough idea. If the posts are shared to other community sites, they typically end up in the 800 to 1,200 view range. If they're not, unless they're an animal or a popular event, they're typically in the 150 to 400 range. And I think changing the pictures clearly helps. I know there were a few stock photos that
Yeah.
were used the last couple of years, the hay bales, for example. If those tend to be in the low hundreds, low to mid hundreds, but if you change the photo, even if it's a fairly mundane photo, you get a jump immediately. So I will certainly keep that in mind
Nice.
going forward and talk with Karen about it as well, because we sort of.
Chasing clicks, huh? I like it.
Yeah, the thing I was interested in terms of the website, in terms of who goes where, so what the popular places are, so that we put a little bit more effort into those particular ones.
And make it easier to get to.
Yeah, the thing I find with our I don't like our website. Our website is, I don't like it. It's hard
Easy
to
to say, hard
find
to fix.
things, it's, yeah. if I'm struggling with it, and I'm an IT person, other people are probably struggling with it too, so I'd like to see what people are going to see content-wise.
I think
So,
the analytic program will definitely give us where they are, how long they stay, which will help. As far as the website itself, the platform is fairly basic.
Yep.
And priced accordingly.
Yep.
There are some other options. I will say that I've looked at some neighboring towns that have a little more complicated websites, and, you know, it took me 10 minutes to figure
Figure it out,
out
too.
how to get to the agenda from the minutes and back and forth. So I think there's gonna be a happy medium somewhere. We're not on the most basic platform, but we're not.
Yeah.
It'd be great to have it on Facebook too, where we have, you know, an agenda each week when it comes out, we also pop it on Facebook and things like that, so people that don't wanna navigate the website can just find them.
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
It'd be great.
Yeah,
Put a pretty
because
picture though.
Many of those,
Puppy.
many of those interesting things get reposted by Laura Thompson. On
Yeah, which is
the-
great, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's where you get lots of hits, so.
Come on, my page gets you an extra 10,
10 is good,
5, sometimes.
thousands would be better, but I think it's all about getting information out to people, so
Yeah, it increases.
if they're using Neighborly to get that, that's fine.
Yep.
But I think if we can rate that particular content and Laura chooses to repost that
Yeah.
on their page, that's fine. It's just getting more eyeballs on the content, and that's what we're looking for.
The last miscellaneous thing I had was Celie Bowley from the Oyster River Parents and Preschoolers had contacted us and said that, and Denise and I debated exactly what this means, but we were informed that Lee is in line to receive up to $500 of benefit, and my understanding is this would not be $500 in cash or like-kind service, but it might be a playground item, something like that.
I can explain that better if you
Oh,
need.
Go
Great,
for it,
thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, I used to be on their board. So the Oyster River Parents and Preschoolers, ORPP for short, which is way easier to say, is made up of people from Durham, Lee, and Madbury. So every 3 years, each town is gifted something. So we have $500 set aside, and I don't remember the order, but obviously it must be Lee's turn. In the past, that money has been used by, I think it was Durham Police Department, to buy teddy bears that they handed out to children
Oh,
who were somehow in the police department. We've purchased a bookshelf for somebody in the past, I can't remember which town exactly, but like little gestures that ORPP can give back to the community.
great.
Right, and so when she called me, she asked for some suggestions of what Lee might need, like something for the playground, or just something like whether it was a swing seat or something for the sandbox, toys for the sandbox, you know, she was just asking for some ideas.
I saw
And-
a really cool thing this weekend where they had a toy box set out and it said, take one, leave one, take one. And so they had the sandbox toys and things like that that people had in there. That was kind of cool, but
Do we need anything for the skating rink?
New liner,
New liner?
Really?
and we put a
That
hole
seems
in
to
it.
be very popular with people.
do you
so-
think ORPP would like that idea? Rebecca?
I mean, I definitely know that people in that group have used the ice skating rink. How much is a new liner?
I don't know. We could find out. And maybe we could match the funds if, you know, if it's more, we could help.
I can certainly make some inquiries as to what a line runs.
And then how are we gonna prevent it getting booked again? Because that's what happened, right?
No.
That's what happened.
Somebody chiseled to the
Somebody,
ice.
yeah, so how are we gonna make that not happen? Yeah. So we'll have to brainstorm and talk about what the best options. We want it to be
Yeah.
something that they feel good about and doesn't get wasted, so
Yeah.
we'll think about that, but that's great. I loved the work when I was.
And that email I sent you from the Oyster River people, you guys will.
Yes, I got that.
Because you just have to fill out a form, right?
And I have to do some research on making sure that, you know, check with ORYA and check the schedule. So I already reached out to her.
It's in the summer, so. They
It's-
don't, do they
Baseball.
use Townfield?
Mhm.
Okay.
It was a 30-day bookings.
It was a
almost.
long time, yeah.
Yeah, it's July 5th to August 5th that they were.
What's that for?
It's a combination of the
Reach?
Oyster River School
Oh, yeah,
District and the Durham Parks and Rec program, their summer
They
program.
only use the town field
Yeah,
this summer.
that program's a lifesaver for a lot of families.
They want to use the Mass Road field next to
Got it, okay.
Mass Way.
Town field.
Town field.
Next to Mass Way.
Yeah, because that makes
They'll
sense.
educate them eventually. so.
Right, that's what I
Our
would
new,
mind.
our new park, the Lamprey River Park, I like that, I think.
Oh, it's a rough crowd, Andy. It's a really rough crowd.
It
Just
is.
keep your chin up.
Anything else, Andy?
No.
You all set? All right, consent agenda?
Not with you people.
No, we- I move to accept the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
You wanna have this one, Rebecca?
She's gonna
Oh,
cough.
sure, I'll second.
Any discussion?
This, the
No.
No, all those in favor. Rebecca, are you in favor?
Yep,
Katrin?
Yes.
Scott, yes, motion passes. We got some things to sign.
Rebecca, you're a trooper for being on while you're sick.
do my best.
You're awesome. Thank you for doing that. It's not easy when you don't feel well. I'm gonna get me this started. Starting out there.
Are you gonna need me to come in at some point and find me?
Yep. Right?
No, she doesn't have to.
I don't
As
know.
long as we have two signatures, they're fine,
Yeah.
Rebecca, unless you really want to.
No,
No,
stay,
it's okay.
stay home,
We're good.
stay home.
I just do the research. What is today's date? The
18th.
Little known fact, that's my favorite number. I don't know how you can use that in life, but
I'll put it on the town webpage.
yeah.
Did we get any more,
With a picture of Bunny.
did we get any more requests for hardship abatements?
We have not. I am working with one resident who wanted to talk about a payment plan, so I've got the standard template, and I'm gonna see what their thought is regarding payments.
Perfect.
My experience so far in the last few months has been everything from, oh, never mind, I'll just come in and pay the whole bill,
Right.
to, I could give you $50 6 months from now.
Okay, well, and we work with whatever we need to work with to find that solution that works. Did we get any more information about the welfare renaming?
I didn't, I have it, I wanted to mention it under old business, and I have some of the
Oh, okay,
titles that you.
great. I went through the information. Oh, yeah, did you get my?
I did,
Yes.
Good, great, thank you.
And
I did not see that.
it's
And that's
okay
why we
to
work
share
together.
electronically with the board,
Perfect.
but they did say they appreciate if we kept it on the consent agenda.
Appreciate it. So, you know what? We work together. I just feel bad when I'm reading my email. It's 12 o'clock at night. I'm like, do I want to send an email right now? Probably not. Will I remember tomorrow? No.
Call me as you need.
Sorry, guys.
All set? Old business?
Yeah, one thing that I had from the last meeting, and I'll give you this in written form as well, but just a response to the town audit letter. There were several items, some of which you're familiar with. The first, I'll just go in order. Regarding payroll permissions, I met with Joanne, and we decided the recommendation was to not have 4 people with access to the payroll software in Tyler. Joanne thought the best thing to do would be to convert myself to view only, because I'm not actually involved in the payroll. She was fairly adamant that she and Liz and Denise should stay as active folks. Denise handles the accrual and HR portion of it, and Joanne pointed out that she's from time to time out. for various reasons, and that Liz really needs to be an active participant and up to speed on doing payroll.
As long as you're not in there.
And that, right. That seemed to be agreeable to everyone. So I also talked with Back Bay, talked to Steve, said that we need a formal disaster recovery plan in place. We have, I guess, what I would call a disaster schedule, basically a calling schedule when something goes wrong and who to notify, and that really isn't, to my mind, the same as a disaster recovery plan, and we're in the process of putting that together. With regard to the deputy treasurer, I think you're all aware, I did speak with Treasurer Jeans. He had a candidate that he brought forward. I did tell him that the board, would require a criminal background check, and he was going to pass that on to the candidate. I did not hear back from anybody regarding this, but we can certainly draft the paperwork and bring that to the board for formal consideration. Ben said that in years past, they had always had a deputy treasurer, and the last person that resigned had just never been reappointed.
Okay, great. Back on track.
Blank checks was another concern in the audit letter. Blank checks are now stored in a locked fireproof cabinet that only the town finance officer has keys to. And we are also in the process of we were running low on checks, and it worked out well because People's Bank is now M&T Bank.
Okay.
So we're in the process of getting new checks, which we will lock up in the fireproof cabinet in the locked finance room.
We have an alternate person in case that person is not.
We don't at this point.
Okay, so we would probably want to have some backup.
We may want to see if possibly Liz would probably be the best person moving forward, just because Denise and I would have no particular reason to be
Right.
printing checks.
Just so that we have, if somebody's out or sick or
I can direct Joanne
loses their key.
to get Liz a key.
Yeah, do you think? I mean,
No, that should be fun, and somebody should be the backup. Another thing I'd like us to explore is the ability for one person not to be part of the cycle, one cycle, in
correct.
terms of the accounting
Every year.
cycle.
Rotate.
So, I don't know if you call that forced vacation or just changing duties, but
Yep.
if we can work that out, and I'm not particular about when it is, so whatever's convenient for, I assume, the two of them. But, so that maybe Liz is in charge for 2 weeks and Joanne has nothing to do with it. And of course, this being said, I'm not saying anything against Joanne, but it's
No.
an accounting practice that, at least one of the cycles in the year, the person that usually does it is not part of the process. So,
Well, I would try to take credit for this, but strangely enough, we have just replaced Joanne for the last 6 weeks
Yeah, I was gonna
with
say.
Liz.
So,
And
done.
then
For the
before,
first
we've
for
had
this
a couple
year.
of
So,
new
yeah.
instances.
Bravo,
for
guys.
this year.
But I understand the desire to plan for that as opposed to happenstance.
That way we're already doing it, so when we get somebody new, it's just how we do it, and we don't ever have, it never has to be about the person that's doing it, it's the job should have that
Yeah,
time.
it's never about the person's position and the responsibilities.
Yeah, some of the other concerns, cash handling and outside processes, that's part of the reason that I'm trying to see what we can do electronically. Once I think we've decided what we can do electronically, we also need to make sure that we've got one process. And I know obviously there's a difference between the fees they're accepting at the transfer station and what they're accepting in planning and zoning, but right now, the auditors did note that there are several processes and timeframes for handling cash and turning it in, and it really should be uniform.
Yep.
Agree.
General ledger beginning balances. I met with the finance officer and talked about this with her. For whatever reason, that wasn't a problem last year or the year before. She clearly identified for me when that problem arose. It was when we moved from Vashon Kluge went back to Plodzik and Sanderson. She has talked with the folks at Tyler Tech, and Plodzik and Sanderson too has offered to give her assistance to get the trial balances back to the beginning and do it before we get to fiscal year '23. So that, Joanne and I are definitely gonna make sure that happens in the next few weeks and be ready for fiscal year '23 with a beginning trial balance.
Great.
We did review the GASB changes. Pretty much none of those apply to Lee. Presently, we don't have any property that we're leasing, we don't have any construction projects, that sort of thing. But we did go over them. And that was really all I had for the audit.
Great. A lot of good changes, thank you.
And I did not, I have not come back with a community use policy because I now have 3 community use policies, one which is about 3/4 of a page, my original one which is 4 pages, and some modified in the middle. I did bring forward something that Katrin and I had talked about, and Katrin had talked with the police chief with regard to, and Pam Mattingly, I think you all met actually, about changing the name of the welfare officer in the welfare department to something more modern or whatever you might choose. I talked to the president of the New Hampshire Welfare Association, who's also the welfare director in Rochester, and he had some suggestions. He said some other municipalities have used human service director or administrator or manager as opposed to welfare director. He says a lot of folks, and probably the most popular one by far is general assistance director, administrator, office manager.
I like that.
And that's because that ties in with the title the DRA uses in budgeting. They call it general assistance. Another popular one that he'd give me the 3 top options was the public assistance director. He did tell me that he lived in Somersworth, and probably 6 years ago, they had gone to human service director and had since come back and changed the signs and changed the office and stuff to human services director / welfare, because human services director caused a lot of confusion.
General assistance, that didn't seem to have as much of a trouble because it's not.
No, I think general assistance is already well connected with the program and the director, just because of the language the state uses.
I think that's great because it doesn't have any preconceived notions around it, or hopefully makes people feel more comfortable using it.
Well, a duck is still a duck, no matter what you call it.
Yeah, but if you think that a duck is one thing and it's something else, and you misunderstand, and then, you can now look at the duck for what it is, it's better.
It's a better duck.
Might make people more comfortable coming
That's what I'm gonna say.
forward.
Yeah, just because sometimes there's an assumption that you're signing up for all of the package when you're going to talk, but sometimes you can just get help in a small way or something.
That's what the ARA calls it, that's fine.
Okay. I would also
So she would be
mention,
the general assistance director?
you can make Pam the general assistance director and have the general assistance department.
That's fine.
I will,
Or officer. Director.
Director?
Right now it's welfare officer, right?
Oh, officer, yeah.
you could have the general assistance officer.
That's fine. But general assistance,
I like it, yeah, whatever. And maybe we can ask her what she prefers.
I did,
tell her no matter what she chooses, the pay doesn't change.
Georgie knows.
after talking with, I believe it was Brian, that was the director of the New Hampshire Association, I did sign up for the association. The dues are $30.
Yeah, I saw
And he pointed out to me while he was talking to me that we were one of the few towns that weren't a member, so.
I thought about a few things. Thank you for
So
doing that.
for $30, I thought it was worth signing up, and I'm going to do one of their virtual meetings about emergency rental assistance. It's available in New Hampshire, a week or two. And we'll certainly talk with Pam about that as well.
So who fills in when Pam's not available? Is that you?
I have,
Okay. So you have all of her resource materials about where to direct people depending on what their needs are?
not entirely. I have talked with Pam, and Pam does an exceptional job once people have been turned over to her. In another instance, Karen Rossi had some solutions and knew. That was the housing thing that Karen had stepped into and promptly made arrangements for the folks.
That's what prompted this, was to put together one
Yeah,
resource manual, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that our people can have the
Oh.
resources.
Yeah,
So if we're in a home,
Yeah.
we think might be some need,
yeah,
we can just give the list of the resources and,
oh, good.
we've thought about doing, one of the things we talked about was having regular quarterly trainings, and I'm wondering if that might be something that for all town employees might be helpful, just so that whoever interacts with somebody from the town, they are able to quickly know where to look or who to ask.
And I think there is a good sense among the employee base right now. I know people come into the front window and talk to Denise, and Denise is quick to talk to them about elderly exemptions and who they might talk to in town. And I know Karen is also very proactive, as are the police
great.
department.
Mhm. Yeah, the more we can do, the better. That's
And,
great.
and your officers do it, but did the fire people do it as well?
that I don't know, I was gonna talk to Scott once we
That
had
was my
this.
next question,
Yeah, once we had this, we knew what we were gonna do, what direction we were gonna go in, and then we can just do a training with them as well.
Okay.
At least the officers, it'd be hard to get all of us call people and
No, I
everything,
understand
but the
that.
officers who are gonna be responding to calls know,
Right,
then, just like our supervisors, they can.
yeah.
And I'm not sure, because we're part of them, but the whole Durham Ambulance Corps, do they have the same kind of stuff?
They don't, but we can certainly include them as
Because
well.
It's a great
I'm
idea.
just thinking about people that go into people's homes
Yes.
professionally.
That's what prompted this.
Yeah, so you go in, of course, the fire department goes in, the ambulance goes in too,
Yeah.
so, and you don't necessarily go to every single ambulance call, right?
Right.
Fire department, do they go to every
Oh,
single?
we're on the police department goes on every ambulance call.
But do you go into the structure?
Not always. So
So,
the fire department does all the time.
okay.
Yeah,
Having
and,
ambulance know is good anyway, just because
but
it's one
even,
person.
I mean, this past winter, Steve called me and he's like,
She's
hey,
gonna say that.
this driveway's not plowed, it hasn't been plowed since the last storm, so we went down there, along with the fire department to check on them, and there just, there was some illness in the home and whatnot,
Yeah.
and some medical issues, and we ended up shoveling their driveway and everything for him, but, Steve hadn't noticed that,
Yeah.
and called me.
And the transfer station's another place where we see people regularly, you might be able to get an idea of things. I just think having everybody know how we can help when we need to help is
Yeah.
great.
And be aware of what to look for.
Exactly.
You have
That's
you have
part of it.
younger people, who've never been in that situation, they don't have the
Exactly.
life experience,
Right.
they may just walk through a situation and just think it's the norm.
Yeah.
So we need to make them more aware of.
Like if you go into the home and on the kitchen table is open things of cat food, that might mean something.
Right.
So,
Right.
especially if they don't have a cat.
Yep.
So,
No, but
you know, that kind of
that's
stuff.
absolutely right. They don't notice those things because they haven't been exposed to it.
Yeah,
So maybe that should be something that we should think about.
Yep.
It's one of the trainings. Thank you very much.
thank you.
The guidelines are already called general assistance guidelines,
Oh, great.
so we don't have to change it.
I love that. Look at that. Nailing it.
So you do have to change all the signs though, like the building signs that says welfare officer.
We only have one side.
Yeah, one
We can handle that. And then she had to get new cards anyway, which is why this all came about was so easily, because she was like, I was just about to ask for this.
She has a new phone that works, she's getting new cards.
Perfect.
And we can.
Once
get her
we get the
to-
new name, right?
And the only other thing I had under new business was Don Jeans had forwarded a letter to myself and Katrin noting that the Stratford Regional Planning Commission has an economic development district project list, and there is nothing from Lee on that. Fairly extensive project list, some of the projects funded, some not, and this, it can be things like there are town hall restorations on there, there are, multi-million-dollar highway projects, that sort of thing, but my understanding was that the deadline for inclusion on this list was March 28th, but Dawn seems to believe that we might still be able to make a suggestion and get a lead project on the list if we came up with something before the end of May.
Can you send that list to us?
I can.
And this is why it's so important for us to be part of the Stratford Regional, because there's so much funding, and if they don't hear our voices, they don't know we need anything, and we don't get anything. And there's so much funding out there that we can help with, and they'll help us with grants and help us with all kinds of things.
Yeah, essentially, you put your project on here and indicate that you are willing and understand that you're going to fund it, and they look for funding, assistance, and
Okay, good.
options for you.
Which is great.
And
Anything else?
I will be quiet at this point, although I would note that it would be good to go into non-public to discuss an ongoing issue.
Great.
So,
Can I add one thing?
Mhm.
go ahead.
Can we add something in the e-crier that lets people know that if they have a community event, who to email and what day of the week they need to email by?
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Yes, can do that.
And we'll put it on the Facebook page and on other pages as well.
I'll put Denise's picture.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Look at all the
that's what I'm
links.
looking for. Okay.
No, and I know Denise appreciates getting things sooner rather than later for the e-crier as well, so.
Except if you call in
And
a
I don't
favor.
know you saying they have to be in by such and such date, and if you don't, they have to be in by Wednesday at
Mhm.
5 o'clock or whatever you want it to be. I think that's perfectly fine if it comes in after, so sad, but
Right.
The official deadline is Thursday at noon still? Okay, Thursday at noon.
So
Get it in or very good.
Or
Denise
wait
is
till
right.
next week?
Oh, we can publicize that more.
Yeah. And if you're late, you have to give up a favor or something.
Mhm.
Call it a chip.
I think the deal is by that time, or it doesn't get to go in.
Yeah, but I have had so many chips of hers that I can just, that's how it works.
You can work on your own, yeah, but I'm gonna say yes.
Yes.
Good idea, Rebecca, thank you.
All right. Anything else under new business? Other business? Non-public, we all said? I have a few things afterwards, but
Well, should we do them beforewards? While people are
no,
here?
we can do them afterwards. I moved to,
Don't we wanna do it while we have people in the meeting?
they don't want to know these things.
Now it's
No,
really
I'm just kidding.
intriguing.
Yeah, see, I'm building up suspense, it's not that. I moved into a non-public session, New Hampshire RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, sections A, C, and L. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? No, roll call
No.
vote. Rebecca?
yep.
Katrin?
Yes.
Scott, yes, motion passes.
So we're gonna hang up on Rebecca here.
I move to seal the minutes from the non-public session. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? No, all those in favor? Rebecca?
Yep.
Katrin?
Yes.
Scott, yes, motion passes. Any other business? I have two things. And they're very exciting. You should, you're so up for this, jeez. No. One's a question. I know John sent out something, but do you have an ARPA fund update for us? Can you give us a little spreadsheet in terms of what we, because I know it's in the financial planning tool, but that's just the planning tool. What have we actually spent and stuff?
I certainly can. I don't have that with me this evening, but I have
I'm
to.
not asking for.
Yeah, I have to do exactly that by the end of this month.
Anyway.
And
Okay,
I believe when I enter the information into the portal that I have to complete, that it will automatically print me a spreadsheet of everything
Okay.
I've done in that.
if you can just share that with us,
Yeah.
so we know exactly what's left and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
how about next meeting, because it'll be done by the end of the month.
Well, I can just email it to you for reference.
That's fine,
Okay.
that's all I'm looking for.
Next day or two.
The last thing, it's an invitation from the Lee Historical Society to have an open house this Saturday from 10 till 2. And they're interested in inviting the town board and staff if they want to come.
I was planning on going.
So they're interested for us to see, not that I haven't seen it, and Richard's probably seen it too, but the new displays and also their use of the annex. They're going to be making a request at some point for other stuff. So they just want you to see what is there now so that when they make their request, that you have some context.
Beautiful.
And you're not invited, Rebecca, if you're still sick.
Yeah, sorry.
That's nice.
That's nice.
What'd you say, Rebecca?
That's
That's
nice.
nice.
She seems
So I'll be
concerned.
out of my 5-day required quarantine by then.
Oh, okay, all
I don't
right.
know how much fun you're gonna be when you're on though, so I'll let you stay home.
So is your family, your husband's okay, but is your little ones, are they behind you or ahead of you?
Behind
They're
It
behind?
all started with Alex,
Oh, okay,
so
that
he's ahead of
Alex.
us,
okay.
he's fine.
Yep.
Maddie is with me, unfortunately,
Oh.
we both tested positive this weekend, so.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
hope you're doing okay.
Okay.
We get her off the phone.
Yeah, motion to adjourn?
Are we
Do I have a
good?
second?
Second.
No debate. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Aye, motion passes.